Alright, in chapter 11, section 1, we're looking at integers, and doing so, these integers, the opposites, and the absolute values to represent real-life situations. So let's take a look at what are these terms that we're talking about. So two numbers are opposite, and we can think of positive and negative being opposites if we were thinking about a battery where you've got your positive end and then you have your negative end. Well, same idea, except with numbers, two numbers are opposites if the two numbers are the same distance from 0 on a number line, but in opposite directions. So again, we think of a number line, and if I have say -5 and +5, they are the same distance from 0. They're both a distance of 5 away. So those would be opposite numbers. But then we look at what are integers. In integers, the key part of looking at integers is it is a set of positive whole numbers and their opposites and 0. So if we want to make sure that we are keeping in mind this whole number part, we're not dealing with fractions, we're not dealing with decimals, we're dealing with whole numbers. And then when we think of, well, what is that distance between -5 and 0 and 0 and 5 to identify that distance? Well, that's the absolute value. And the absolute value is its distance from 0 on a number line. The opposite numbers have the same value. And the key thing to remember is we write absolute value with the bracket bars and then the number inside. And we'll explore, seeing how those are written as this lesson continues. But it is the distance from 0 to both the positive and negative number. So let's take a look at some examples. So first one, representing situations with integers. You are 6 spaces behind your opponent in a board game. What integer represents your situation? Well, it says that we are 6 spaces away from our opponent in the game. So we are 6 away, but if I am saying that I'm behind them, then I'm -6 spaces behind. But I'm still 6 spaces. And as we write this out, I am 6 spaces from 0 to my opponent. This is this space over here. And then, or I could look at it that I am at 0 and they are 6 spaces ahead of me. So both situations, I am 6 spaces away. So -6 and 6 are both 6 units from 0. So the opposite of 6 is -6. Let's continue looking at some examples. Go ahead and practice these, and we'll check here in a second. Alright. The elevation of New Orleans, Louisiana is 8 feet below sea level. Use an integer to represent this elevation. So you should be able to picture that if we have New Orleans, we have a city here, we've got some buildings, and some people, but it is 8 feet below sea level. So if we have that, then we've got some water up here. So what is that distance from sea level to ground level at New Orleans? Well, it is -8 feet. So for number 2, write the opposite of -5. Well, the opposite is 5. Let's carry on and look at some more examples. So finding the absolute value. Find the absolute value of -19. And remember, these bracket bars, this part here, the vertical parallel bars, that means absolute value. So it is, again, the distance from 0. So if I look at -19, well, it is 19 units from 0. So the absolute value is 19, even with that negative sign in there. it's still going to be 19 units. Go ahead and check these two. I'll check here in a second. Alright, so find the absolute value. Remember, the bracket bar means absolute value. Absolute value of negative 1, well, it's going to be 1. Because if I had negative 1 on the number line, and I want to find out how far is it from 0, negative 1 and 0, well, it's going to be one spot from. But if I had one spot positive 1, that'd still be 1. So it's a distance from 0. And then I've got 7, absolute value of 7, well, it's 7. The key thing is whatever number is inside of the absolute value bracket bars, or the bars there, well, it's just that number, just in a positive form. The only twist to this would be if I had a negative sign outside of the absolute value bar. Then I have the absolute value of 7, but then I've got a negative outside, so this one would actually be negative 7. We'll talk more about that later on, but just a little teaser for the future.